Welcome back to the OK Kiteboarder, and I'm excited to start a new series entitled Just Winging It. Most of you probably think that my past instruction series should also share the same title. But if by chance you do find benefit from content on this channel, please subscribe. And don't forget to reach out to Green Hat Kiteboarding for all your kite, foiling, wing thing needs. So I have been waiting for warm enough waters to embark on my wing journey, and I cannot quite yet, but I am very close to saying that I am thrilled this journey has begun. The plan is to have a series of videos that will follow my development of learning on how to wing it. Hopefully my failures and experiences can speed up the learning curve for you also. Many of you at this point are probably saying, why even wing it? The reasons for me are, number one, it opens up launches where I would usually not be able to launch a kite. It allows me to ride more wind directions, and the wing handles gusty conditions well. Also, it's a safer solo sport if you do get stranded. But honestly, most of all, it's a wind sport that involves a hydrofoil. Why would you not want to add it to your skill set? I think wing foiling has a really good chance to reach a population that could be initially overwhelmed by kiting, but has a real interest in participating in wind water sports. Not to mention its application in the current surfing, supping, and general hydrofoil population. Let's get started with the first step, which are gear decisions. And aren't there already a lot of options out there? What board, what wing? No, not that wing, the other wing. Now what about the other wing? What size, what brand, straps, no straps, leashes, what about leashes, and so on. Beginning with the board, this is a tough decision. Many recommendations are for a board that exceeds 40 liters of volume over your weight for a beginner. The problem with this approach, if you don't have temporary access for a board of this size, is just how quickly do you outgrow this setup. I decided that investing in one board and holding on to longer term goals would be my initial approach. So I decided on the F1 Rocket Wing board in the 510 size at 90 liters of volume. I went into this setup with the understanding that I was probably going to waste 3 to 4 sessions just getting used to board control of something under my feet that only exceeded my weight by around 15 liters. And that was all very true, but I'm past that initial learning curve now, and I'm definitely thankful that I did not go with a 7 to 8 foot board or a board with 115 liters or more of volume. Okay, now on to the wing ding. There are a few factors that come into play on the wing. I'm finding that the wind range is pretty good on these, so 2 wings should probably fill an entire quiver. But I'm beginning with the Nash S25 5.3 meter in size and the F1 in the 5 meter size, just to compare. I'm finding that this is filling approximately the 14 to 25 mile per hour range for me. I'm also finding early on that I need wind. To get up on foil at this point, I need wind speeds in the high teens. Of course, less is required for me once up on foil. Things to consider with the hand wing are durability, weight, hand positioning, gust control, vision, and a few other personal preferences and nuances that are still being improved in this arena. Make sure that when you inflate your wing, you reach the recommended PSI. A stiff wing is very beneficial. I do believe there are a number of great wing options currently on the market, but improvements, I would predict, are far from being tapped. Foil wings obviously need to be larger than a kite hydrofoil wing, especially at the entry-level stages. So I've gone with the Delta 1880 front wing for a few reasons. It's a setup that I can use while kite foiling by just switching out the front wing. This will also hopefully allow progression to Delta's 1500 centimeter square wing on the same setup as well. And this would mean that I will be able to use the same light wing kite foil wing as I would use for wing foiling. But right now at this stage, I just want lift, and play and velocity are probably secondary. Obviously, I'm not breaking any speed records out there. I'm not really getting up on foil until 7 to 8 miles per hour, and I'm maxing out in the low to mid-teens on foil. With the mast, I'm only using a full size as I haven't seen the need or benefit of starting on a 60 centimeter. There are so many variables on front foil wing decision making. Are you attempting to ride waves, flat water, what's your board size, high aspect, low aspect, how about your body weight? I will say that if riding a hydrofoil is extremely foreign to you, then jumping into wing foiling will probably be overwhelming. At the minimum, become comfortable riding a hydrofoil behind a boat, at a cable park, or wake foil surfing. However, if you already kite foil, surf foil, or sup foil, this aspect will be an easy transition. I opted to not go with foot straps for a couple of reasons. For one, the rocket board does not have strap inserts, but even so, I like to move my feet around on the board, and I feel that straps can get in the way when kneeling with transitions, and they would not allow me the flexibility to change foot positions as easily when I feel necessary. The negative, at least early on, is that it probably does limit my foil pumping by not being connected better to the board. And of course, it will not allow jumping, but let's be realistic, I'm not going to be doing any of this. Possibly, I will look at adding straps as I become proficient in switch foot jibes and am consistent in staying up on foil with all transitions. Your wing thing will come with a leash that you can attach to your wrist. You will also want to have a board leash, which can sound a little bit intimidating, but without a leash, you are likely to watch that board and foil sail free to a new home downwind after an early inevitable fall. I use a coiled leash for my board, which can extend to 10 feet, but when not under tension, is off of the water's surface. Many people also prefer to attach the leash to their waist. It's all personal preference. Also, now some riders are using harness lines to lock in better with the wing. This will make it a little more difficult in getting onto your board due to your harness hook, and I would probably not look into harnessing in until I feel like I'm a little more experienced. The full potential of these setups are still a ways out. Now that we've hit up an initial overview of the required gear on the water, let's look at setup and transport to the water. When mounting your foil on the track system, you're going to have to do a little trial and error to tune the foil. You want to have enough lift in the wing to come up on foil with a little bit of speed, but not so much lift that you can't even kneel without the front of the board rising. Finding that point of equal weight distribution while riding on foil is extremely important. Further forward on the track for more lift and further back for less lift. Transporting to your launch, keep the hydrofoiling board upwind of the wing. Early on, when taking the inevitable walk of shame or when transporting longer distances, I prefer to walk upwind with the hydrofoil over my shoulder and the wing in the opposite arm. Carrying for significant distances by the board's handle can become exhausting, but when entering the water, carry the board by the handle upwind with the wing downwind. I think that it's best early on in the learning process to have a launch with fairly flat water, easy, shallow water entry, and a lot of downwind bailout for exiting whenever you're losing ground. Now let's back up and look at some steps that you can take to get more familiar with your wing and setup before you put it all together for your first session on the water. The wing ding is a new tool for many, and getting used to it, whether you're a kiter, windsurfer, or have no wind sports background, will take only minimal time and effort for entry-level ability on the water. I recommend starting on land, a grassy area or beach, because the tips of the wing will touch down early on with mistakes, and you don't want to destroy your wing before you've even hit the water. Just standing statically initially, get used to wing control. Just a small breeze will suffice at this point. Keep your back to the wind and get used to keeping the wing high, pulling in at the back elbow, and feeling the increase in power when doing so. Never leave only your backhand on the wing. Transitions should always take place by leaving a hand on the front handle of the wing as your anchor point. If the wing gets too low, the front may want to dive into the water, which is pretty tough to recover. So make sure to keep the wing high enough, and if the front begins to dive down, pull in with the backhand and extend the front elbow to a higher position. As you get more comfortable, progressing to a more dynamic activity with the wing, such as using a land board or even a one wheel when there's really no wind and you want to simulate maneuvering the wing from hill to toe side in a dynamic environment. On the water, you can also benefit from using a large SUP to work on wing control, not just in a standing position, but also in flipping the wing over in the water, which actually may be one of the more difficult things to do in the water in a kneeling position. All of these micro investments will carry over to proficiency when combining the whole wing foiling setup. There are a few ways to mount the board. I usually just jump on from the posterior lateral position in a prone position. For board control, especially when learning on a smaller volume board, practice tall kneeling on the board. You'll notice immediately that this is actually not that easy, that your core is firing to stay balanced. One way to practice this on land to replicate and train your body to be more efficient in this position is in a tall kneeling on an exercise ball. Once you feel more comfortable in the water, try tall split kneeling, which is the position you will be in before coming to a standing position. It's actually pretty difficult to do this on a small leader board when you don't have any speed or momentum. Let's stop right here for a second because I would make sure that you do wear booties in the early stages of board control regardless of the temperature. I went out on my first water session with no booties and I didn't realize how much the dorsal side of my feet were working in a kneeling position to maintain balance on the board. I, however, did realize the results of friction burn shortly after my session. Getting comfortable kneeling on the board will occur much more quickly than you may think initially. However, I think it's worth a short investment to dial this skill in separately at the beginning. Now that you feel comfortable kneeling on the board and your wing control has become proficient on land, it's time to start putting it all together in a beautiful sequence of movements for the next couple of hours that can easily be compared to many other athletes.
A little bit longer now, a little bit more. Hold it, cowboy. Watch that ball.
Don't become frustrated with bells, spills, slips, and slides. It's all part of the process. Mounting the board now with the wing, keep the wing leash shortened to have more control. While in a kneeling position, pull the wing in closer and grab a forward handhold first. Then place the rear hand on the wing. The wing will immediately rush forward to the edge of the wind window and redirect the board some. Travel some downwind until comfortable and then lift the windward side foot on the board into a tall split kneeling position. When in the tall split kneeling position and ready now to stand on the board, start distributing a little more pressure on the windward side of the board. Pull in on the backhand with the wing overhead and use the increased power of the wing to rise to your feet. You can also practice this maneuver on land to get more comfortable in a stable environment. Make sure that you are not stuffing the nose of the board underwater and that your weight is far enough back on the board. What you will also notice, which is much different than in a kite foil water start, is that a misdistribution of weight over your toe side and you can easily fall over the front of your board. Get used to riding the board pretty flat and pretty balanced. Become comfortable moving your feet a little bit on the board and weight distribution around on the board and see how it all reacts. If you're able to ride this setup on the water for a substantial time in both directions, then honestly, everything up on foil will be a piece of cake. If you're having difficulty returning to land, you have a few options. Initially, you can straddle the board like a surfboard and use the wing to direct you back towards land. If you need a little more upwind ability, just tall kneel and use the wing in the same way. If you are out and the wind dies or you're not having success using the wing to redirect to land, you can take the wing leash and put it around your ankle while lying prone on the board and then swim back to land. If the wind has died, you can probably just lie the wing over your feet as you swim back, and changing the leash is not really necessary. Lastly, if you have no other options, deflate the wing on the water, fold it up, put it under you, and swim prone on the board back to safety. When on land, store the wing with the board lying over the wing on its dorsal side, bow on the wing, foil facing upward, and put the wing leash around the base of the foil. If winds are turbulent and inconsistent and there is concern that the hydrofoil may shish kebab the wing, I would recommend securing the wing separate of the hydrofoil with an anchored device. That's where we're going to stop for today, and this episode is obviously for the person contemplating or just now stepping into this sport. The next episode in this series will look at getting up on foil, riding on foil, upwind, downwind riding, beginner transition points, and other developmental emphasis. Please comment with some of your pointers and experiences in this fairly new endeavor, and I hope you join me next time on the OK Kiteboarder.